Hi everybody, welcome to another Chats with Chaudhry. I hope you're safe and well. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Mattia, who is from the BioPharma Group, and we're going to be looking back at 2020 and looking at the impact it's had on the freeze-drying sector. So, buongiorno Mattia, how are you? Long time no speak.
Rizwan, good morning. Yeah, thanks for your time today. I'm very good, thanks. Good to see you. I think we met a couple of years ago back in Berlin. So glad to see you again.
It's lovely to see you. In fact, last time it was at DDF Summit, and we were doing a video then as well, but slightly different to that because you had to stand up and do a monologue to me holding a video, holding a camera next to your poster. So hopefully this is a bit easier. And
Yeah,
you're calling in from Italy, is that correct?
that's correct. Yes, I'm working from Italy now for BioPharma, based in Italy, working remotely. So yeah, completely different scenario from what we had a couple of years ago in Berlin. So yeah.
Brilliant. All right. So before we start talking about freeze drying, perhaps you can give people a very quick overview of BioPharma Group and also a little bit about your background as well.
Sure. So I'm Mattia Cassanelli. I'm technical manager in BioPharma, responsible for the consultancy services, contract research, contract manufacturing services for BioPharma. I've been working for BioPharma since 2018. And before that, I did a PhD in Birmingham, University of Birmingham, and it was about freeze drying, mainly within the food industry. So BioPharma is a contract research organization based in Winchester. We do a research consultancy for companies. We also develop analytical instrumentation training courses for companies, and also we provide machinery like freeze dryers. We are based in Winchester, the UK, but also we have offices in France, Ireland, and US. And we work with a lot of companies from pharmaceuticals to diagnostics, biotech, and food, for example.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about freeze drying. So first, very basic question. What actually is freeze drying and why is it so important within pharma?
Yeah, so freeze drying is a drying process, freeze drying or lyophilization, and it consists of sublimation of ice crystals into vapor. So rather than using a hot heat treatment like hair drying, we are just using we are freezing the product samples. Then we decrease the pressure, and at that point, sublimation occurs. In that way, because it's a process based on negative temperatures, we help retain the activity, stability of the product or the active ingredient. So we limit any damage to the stability. We avoid the degradation of the molecules. So that's why freeze drying is so popular in pharmaceutical or diagnostics.
Right. Okay. So looking back at 2020, obviously it was a very unique year. How has it impacted the freeze drying sector?
Yeah, it was indeed a very peculiar year. So essentially, we noticed a significant increase in demand in terms of diagnostics applications or for pharmaceutical application, like obviously like vaccine. And because we are, as I said, a CDMO, we kind of gauge the freeze drying industry market. And yeah, so especially at the beginning of the year, and it's still ongoing, but especially at the beginning of last year, there was a huge demand in diagnostic application, diagnostic products. And then towards the end of the year, 2020, it was also about development of potential candidate vaccines.
Right. And you mentioned diagnostic products. So how are you able to cope with the increased demand?
Yeah, well, as you can imagine, because COVID situation, but also for other applications. So we noticed a huge increase in demand in COVID in diagnostics products like IBD test.
So what's an IBD? What's an IBD tester? Sorry.
In vitro diagnostics.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, essentially there's a product sample, and then you put the material taken from the patient, and then you will react, and we give you information, you're positive or negative.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it was quite as I said, quite a peculiar year. So what we did, it was to increase also freeze drying capabilities, capacities in biopharma, but also in all the freeze drying industry. It was something that we noticed. And to do so, especially for diagnostics applications, there are two main approaches. One could be take the liquid with the reagents, put in the specific container, which could be vials or well plates, and then you put in the freeze dryer. Then once they are dried, you kit it, you do a packaging, and then you put that in the market. An alternative could be using lyo beads or freeze-dried spheres. It's a different preparation process, but at the end you will have a freeze-dried product, and it will help with sustain that huge demand. And just to give you an example, one of our smallest freeze dryer could dry like 2,000 reaction units, like tubes, during a single batch. Whereas when we talk about lyo beads, we can dry up to 20,000 units. So you can see a huge increase in productivity, and this would help sustain, fulfill the market request.
Right. Okay. And what about formulated products? Were they important in terms of what you're doing?
Yeah, so that's a very good point, because when you develop a formulation for diagnostics application, not necessarily what is good for liquid, it is also good for lyo. So it is very important to formulate the product in a way that could be suitable for freeze drying. So you will need to include some cryoprotectants to protect against freezing, right, and also some lyoprotectants to protect against drying. So having a good formulated product will be very important. And depending on the application, depending on the container that the company will choose, either vials or well plates, freeze-dried beads, then it will be good to have a very bespoke formulation that could enhance the properties of the material and also retain the activity. So we want that the formulation doesn't interfere with the test.
Right. Okay. Now let's talk about vaccines. You said obviously that the demand has grown, obviously, or did grow in the second half of the year as vaccines got developed. Yeah. So again, how has vaccine development impacted the sector?
Yeah, so obviously when we talk about vaccine for COVID, at the moment is mainly everything is dictated by liquid. So we have all liquid products. However, you know that when it comes to freeze drying, because you can store the material for longer, the shelf life will be extended, and also you could avoid the cold chain, or anyway limit that. Could be very, very useful. So what we are doing at the moment, for example, is to develop with the companies developing candidate vaccines. We are trying to develop a formulation that can be suitable for liquid, for the short term, and also for lyo, for the mid-long term. And as you can imagine, when we were talking about products like vaccines like mRNA, RNA, vaccines, lipid nanoparticles, liposomes, that would be very important to have a better storage rather than -80 or very low temperatures. Increasing the storage temperatures in a way that you could, for example, ship to countries where the cold chain is not so available.
Sure. So what are the main technical challenges around that, though, for vaccines?
Yeah. So when we talk about doing a good formulation for vaccines, we need to retain the activity of the vaccine, try to minimize any damage that drying could introduce to the product. So we want to have a good shelf life. We want to have a storage, possibly at room temperature. So when we talk about freeze drying vaccines, we need also to include excipients like cryoprotectants, lyoprotectants that could be compatible for injection for the specific application. So there's a study behind the formulation also for freeze drying. And then the next step will be develop a good freeze drying protocol that could maximize, the quality of the product.
Right. Okay. And is there one out there at the moment, or is that something that you're developing?
So it's something that we are currently co-developing. So it's something that we with several companies, mainly in the UK, Europe, something that we are currently co-developing.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. Now, what other products or applications can you support with your expertise in freeze drying?
Yeah, well, freeze drying, something very good for freeze drying is the fact that you can span different across different sectors, not only pharmaceutical or diagnostics, but as I said, also biotech or food. So, for example, something that is also quite popular at the moment, freeze drying microorganisms, bacteria. So like can be probiotics, could be bacteria for biotherapeutics, human cells, and also like human tissues for tissue engineering, like collagen scaffolds. So not only pharmaceutical, like classic API, small molecules, but also cells, large molecules like proteins, antibodies. Something that is also quite something that we are currently doing, development, design and development of formulation for monoclonal antibodies therapies. Instead of vaccine, we are focusing here on the treatment rather than on the prevention. So yeah, different application. And the good thing, as part of a CDMO, you don't get bored at any time, because one day you talk about one product, another day a completely different one.
Yeah, well, a bit like me doing these interviews, I'm doing a different interview on a different subject every time, so it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So, looking ahead, what can you see as the future trends then for freeze drying?
Well, I'm expecting something very similar to last year. So what we have learned from 2020, especially diagnostics application, are very important. So everything that is about diagnostics, not only for COVID, but also for other diseases, other infections, is has becoming very, very popular. So I would expect, especially diagnostic sector, will keep expanding. Obviously, pharmaceuticals is something that will steady, continues to develop new drugs, new APIs, and surely freeze drying will be becoming popular even more than today.
You mentioned the diagnostics is going to increase for other diseases. So what are there any particular sort of treatments that you have in mind that you think diagnostics are going to grow?
Well, mainly I can think about like infections, seasonal infections, or could be something a bit more like for tumor cancer. I think about that. For example, not only for diseases like infections, but also like tumors, cancer, diagnostic of that kind of type.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, that's what we've got time for, Mattia. So if you want to know more information, where can they get it?
So you can get in touch through our website, which is www.biopharma.co.uk, or if you prefer also to drop me a message on LinkedIn, I'll be available. And then we can have a call, get to know each other, try to understand the project requirements, and then try to find a good and tailored solution.
Fantastic. All right. Well, there you have it, everyone. So I hope you learned more about freeze drying and its importance and some of the trends going on over the last 12 months and going ahead. If you would like to know more from Mattia, then as he said, the link for the website will be above the video, and you can get in touch with him via LinkedIn, leave a comment below the video as well. And as he said, he'll be happy to answer any questions and help you. So Mattia, all that's going to say is thank you very much. It's lovely to see you again. Ciao.
Isvan, thank you very much to you too, and yeah, hope to see you soon hopefully in person next time.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll do in the not too distant future. So have a wonderful 2021. May
You
be
too.
happy and successful as well. And congratulations on the little baby as well.
Thank
So and to everybody who is watching, I hope you have a fantastic 2021. Thank you for watching as always. And until next time, stay well and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.